Good evening. Before you tonight, during the action items of the agenda, we're asking you for the approval to move forward with a referendum for Tuesday, December the 4th, 2018. And as I reported several weeks ago to the Board of Education, as well as to the community, wanted to explain as best as possible with not too much confusion, the salient points of this particular project and the necessity for each of those tasks within the project itself. And I have up on the first slide here, which I presented before, is talking about the two major projects in terms of repair, if you will, and replacement of two of our relatively, comparatively speaking, new schools, excluding the one we are here tonight, and that is the two schools on County Route 78. As Mr. Perino mentioned just a moment ago, in our efforts to communicate to different groups in our community, I was speaking at the Kiwanis Club yesterday at their meeting, and when I mentioned about these two schools, they didn't realize that those two schools have been open for 21 years. They opened in the fall, September of 1997, and they need extensive work on those roofs. The fact of the matter is that it's just not a basic roof repair, but a replacement in which the roofs where the metal is located will come off. Additional more support structures will have to be in place, iron structures, trusses if you will, and then place the roof back and then do a great extensive work with the piping underneath that for heating and cooling, as well as the insulation to prevent from what occurred, which was not ample insulation, and of course during the winter months when snow accumulates on the roof and you have the heat from underneath and then the frost coming down and snow and ice moving down off, sliding off the roof, not having the appropriate flashing between the roof lines and the brick and mortar and stonework, had leakage in those buildings, and therefore for not to continue that, we need to repair them immediately, and that's why you see a very extensive repair bill in each one of those projects. $9,300,000 plus at Maple Hill, and $9 million for Maple Hill, and $8 million at Monhegan. Monhegan also needs some minor work, $140,000 work on the garage that's just contiguous to the school, but on the property there that houses some of the equipment from building and grounds, etc. Twin Towers, as you know, is opening up its 78th year. Opened in 1940, one of the WPA projects of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's administration. Good deal, that was the name of his administration, indicating that put people back to work by building municipal projects, and that building, as beautiful it is one of those projects. But like anything else that's an edifice of 78 years, it needs extensive work, and we have to do roofing and flashing work there to prevent water leakage into the building proper. But most of the work there, $3 million worth of work, is the restoration of the bricks and the stone facades, the pilasters, if you will, are separating from the cinder blocks behind, and water seepage is occurring in there, seeping into the building. Obviously, for a multitude of reasons, that needs to be repaired. We just cannot continue that. So that's the repair work that needs done of this $34,880,000 project. $13.5 million of this project is what is needed due to the positive thing of having more people move into our school district. We're one of the few school districts in the Hudson Valley, and I might say in the state of New York, that is growing. Our demographer from several years ago has been spot on in terms of the projections up to this date. Right now we sit, as we speak today, as I mentioned that I didn't have an exact amount because it was before the first Wednesday in October, which is Beds Day, the official attendance day in the state of New York. We have 2,200 students at the high school. The projection by that demographer for 3 years, almost 4 years from now, will be 2,500 students. currently our cafeteria, as beautiful as it is, as modern as it is, cannot accommodate all of the students that need to be accommodated within a reasonable amount of time to have lunch. Right now, the first lunch period begins at 9:52, and the last lunch period ends around 1:33 in the afternoon. So I cannot have a sixth lunch period, which right now exists 5 lunch periods, starting at 9:15 at a 45-minute period duration, or have one that's starting at 1:30 minutes before dismissal. So therefore, the plan in working to, how should I say, best use the facilities that we have and the land that we have was to propose to the Board of Education, to the community, to reconvert the existing library media area to an auxiliary cafeteria, but modernize the functionality of that room. We'll probably see close to 300 students in there, but they'll be in the perimeter of that room, workspaces with obviously connectivity. So it'd be almost like a Starbucks type of facility where students today can go in there during lunch, get maybe something light to eat. That'll be served inside that room to sit down and continue some of their projects in their work. As you know, many of our students need to work outside of school, and they're always competing against work and their work schedule from school. And this would help alleviate some of that. But more importantly, would provide needed relief to the existing situation where the lines are very long, especially on the hot line items. I need not remind everyone that we continually talk about the fact that 80% of our student body is on free and reduced lunch, and many of those students rely on the hot lunches and breakfast programs that we serve here in our school district. And therefore, to not curtail any of those endeavors in which they are on the line, and frustration sets in because of time. As you know, people may leave that cafeteria and skip lunch because of a time element, or they feel, why bother wait on this line so long, I won't have enough time to eat. So we're trying to prevent all of that. Yes, we do have some automation in there in terms of in the morning, but we're trying to provide an appropriate eating spot for them. So by doing that, one might ask, well, where it happens to a media center, a library, if you will, in a school of 2,500 students? The fact of the matter is that's the growth that is necessitating this particular next part of the project of $13.5 million, where we're going to have a standalone building connected to the school, but be able to be separated to the school so that we can have activities on a Saturday and confine the accessibility to that facility for Saturday only. We can have after school hours for our community members, for senior citizens to use the facility. And we envision to have programs on Saturday, not only for the student body to come in and do some more work before they may have to work on 211, ShopRites and the fast foods and the McDonald's, et cetera, up and down 211, where many of our students have a few hours of work a week. Come there in the morning, do some work, and hop out to their work schedule. So we see multiple uses for these facilities. And it is a large item of $34 million, $800. And you say, where are we going to get that money? Will my taxes increase? Those are legitimate, worrisome questions for everyone. So where's this money's going to come from? We all know that money doesn't grow on trees, so to speak. Who's going to pay for all of this? Well, as you know, we have a fund balance for emergencies. We just had an emergency this week. One of the major pipes burst in our high school, and we need repair in that work. If we didn't have fund balance, we wouldn't be able to call in workers immediately to fix the leakage in the room that's affecting a music room and the theater. But we always have set aside almost $6 million a year, and we're going to do $5,680,000 to this project. So that's one piece of it. That means it's already in a savings account. Just like we have savings account for emergencies, so does the school district. Capital reserve. The Board of Education put aside an account for capital reserve for capital improvements, a savings account for that purpose. So $10 million will be allocated to this project. So here we're talking about $6 million, $10 million already in our savings accounts. Before we came to this conclusion and the problem of increasing enrollment in terms of making a decision to move forward with a new project, we already had decided to reconfigure the library, do some much needed work, and allocated about $2,200,000 already. That money now will go to this project because it's affecting the same area. So now we have the difference of $17 million worth of bonds. I'll say it in another way, a loan. And we all know that loans cost money. That's the principal, and there's always interest to a principal. So how do we pay principal and interest? Just like a car loan, a mortgage. Every time you borrow money, there's a cost, interest, to that amount of money borrowed. So where's that money going to come from? Well, 70% of it comes from state aid. Because of our demographics, we are entitled to 7 cents on every dollar back from the state. So in 20 years, we have to pay it back, state aid, 20 years of payments. And over 20 years, we have to pay $30 million back. Okay? So there's some differences here. So we're borrowing 17. We have money in the bank accounts already. And with our successful vote, hopefully you will vote to see the necessity of the repairs and the facility extension at the high school for purposes. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you go to the next, those are the assumptions. We'll go back to all of this. We have to pay back over $30 million. However, right, over 15 years, we have to pay back $23 million on the interest and principal, which means at the end of the project, we are saving in our accounts to put back as another account for capital reserves for future, or wherever we see appropriate in need, over $6,700,000. I'll say that again. We have to pay back $23 million of the $30 million, which means that we are going to save over the 20 years $6,709,000, which means no increase to the tax levy, to your taxes, as a result of this project. So once again, explaining the necessity of this to the community and the fact that there will be no increase to the tax levy, or another way of saying that, no increase to your taxes as a result of this project. And we really hope that you come out and vote. In the mailings that you'll be receiving in a few weeks, postcards in English and Spanish indicating to every voter in the district, every household that votes, a homeowner, will receive where you go and vote. Whether you own a home or rent, you are entitled to vote because your rent pays the landlord who's paying the taxes, so directly or indirectly, however you want to look at it, we all pay the taxes. And the fact of the matter is we're going to make it clear to everyone where you reside and where you vote. Now remember what I had presented to the community last board meeting, that we're consolidating the voting places. We are no longer going to have for school elections only. I repeat, for school elections only. Not for civil, not for midterm elections, general elections of the president. For school elections only, which would be referendums and Super Tuesdays in May. We are not going to have Twin Towers as a location to vote. Anyone or everyone that has voted at the Twin Towers now will vote along with all of the people who vote in the Middletown High School. So all of Twin Towers residents that vote at the Twin Towers, whether you go to the school or not, but if you have signed previous years to Twin Towers to go vote, now you vote at the high school. So you'll have the high school as a voting place, Truman Moon as a voting place, and this building right here, presidential. There'll be 3 voting locations for school elections. We will, again, send out a mailer to everyone. It'll be a white postcard in English and Spanish telling everyone where you vote, and all those who previously voted at the Twin Tower School will now vote at the Middletown High School. I will now entertain any questions from the Board of Education.
We've discussed this a number of times, so there shouldn't be, we've had a couple presentations. Are there anything new and compelling questions? Go ahead.
Just one question, and I'm more than you probably did answer it on the first time you presented to us. Anticipating that the voters will approve the referendum in December, do we have an anticipated or projected date when the different construction projects are expected to start and a date that will end? That's my first question. My second is, if it's going to be during the different school years, what's going to be done to ensure no disruption of the learning aspect or the student, the flow of traffic and all that?
Well, moving back, we're hoping that this will be available for 2022, September of 2022, to open up the new facility, right? In January of 2020, all right, we hope that we'll have the cafeteria set aside for the auxiliary room to be ready, all right? One of the benefits of what is proposed in terms of how this will be accomplished is that building for the new media center and the television projection center will be a separate entity so that construction can go on without any interruption to the building at large. There'll be no interruption to the parking, right? And we will lose no parking spaces with this project. There might be some facilities that need to have fenced off so there's no safety issues for people, students alike, to be around the building. But the building will take place, if you look at the event center, you look to the right, you see that slope coming down, right? That's unusable land. That's where this will sit. It'll be connected to the school, but the building will not have any impact about disruption in terms of what we had to go through in terms of the last 2, the addition to the theater, and then more recently the 3rd floor.
Thank you for reinforcing that as you did in the last meeting. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just one. Are there plans in the future to link that media center with the after-school program at the high school that has been so successful?
Well, quite frankly, as I mentioned to you before in the exec session, that this is growing and growing and growing, this program, and as well to the community. We talked about the success of this program. There may be an overflow that room may need to be needed for those students to use that facility, among other students, not only just for the high school, but any other student that may want to use that in the school district will be open to. However, it'll have that compatibility with that type of high-tech technology in the room, so they could do that. Right now, they're now moving from only the lower level. Now they're going to have to open up the space on the 3rd floor for the after school to accommodate the increased needs, which is a good issue for us, which we welcome and hope it to grow. So that would be a 3rd location.
Presently, there isn't any linkage right now between after school and the library and the after school.
No, but that would be what would happen now before all this building would happen, that we'd have students. Because students go in there right now, but without instructional support, they're going there independently to work at the media center now. One of the, I believe, contributing factors that separates that what has always happened, independently, children go in there to work on their own accord or in groups, is the fact that we have each of the 4 days, Monday through Thursday, a designated instructional teacher in there. I don't remember the exact days, but one day's math, one day science, one day social studies, one day is English. And on Fridays, we have a rotating schedule. So maybe on 1 week now is 2 days of math, Monday, Friday. The next week, so on. And we post that so the children know. So every day of the week, because we first started only Monday through Thursday on the 4 core subjects, by student demand, they would want the 5th day open, and they were going there last year on their own accord. Well, I got a call saying, hey, did you make an announcement without letting the high school know? I said, what are you talking about? There were students in there working on their own accord without instruction of a staff member, and we went in there, and one of the teachers had called me, and I said, if you go in there, I'll compensate you, which they did, which is one of the instructors that was in the program. So now we have made it more official because of this September, and it's open 5 days a week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure.
You mentioned that this is a project for the next 4 years, that we expect the growth
Yeah, about
over
3.5 from
300
now, yeah, sure.
additional students. What about further than that, maybe 5 to 10 years down the line?
Well, we hope that, looking at the numbers from the demographer, the bubble will pass and will accommodate that, and then we won't be at that apex. The demographer works on live births, right? The bubble right now for us is in that upper elementary and middle school. Both of those 2 middle schools have the highest population of students than they've had since we split the 2 schools in 1997. For example, Twin Towers was always around 820, 840 students, and Monhegan in the high 700s. Today, Twin Towers is 940 students, and there's 875 at Monhegan. So that bubble's going up, and so is the grades 4 and 5. It seems to be in our pre-births may not be as high as that. So as we have now remember I said live births, but it doesn't take an eagle flying around this community to see that there's a lot of growth and development going on. This week, Lannis paper talked about Mayflower on Anthony Avenue, which is the avenue right outside the board office, if you will, perpendicular to East Main Street, where they have a project where it's, I think, half sold out before they're even erected. Right? And then there's, we all know that up on the turnabout, Maple Fields is in its 3rd phase. So the fact is that our district is growing, but to get state aid, we have to show live births, and we'll take a visit up to the state. The 3 of us will probably have to get up to the state and talk about where we are opposite just live births to increase our, our state aid in terms of growth in this city.
Okay, thank you.
So we're looking at that, Mr. Pierre, in terms of not only our live births, but the enrollments that are increasing. We have about over almost 200, about 180 new students to our school district today than we did when we closed in June, total.
All right, thank you.
And much of that was at the high school level, which is not what we think about. We think about families moving in at the elementary, middle school levels. We find the numbers for this year so far is that we've had a great growth at the high school, which then exacerbates the situation at lunchtime.
Anything else? Thank you for the presentation. Mr. Tuttle, do you have anything to add? Hey, thank you.
So remember, kindly, the vote is Tuesday, December 4th. We're praying and hoping and wishing that it's good weather and to come out and vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.